This is Aleksandra, the tutor from Athena for Digital Firm, and I'm back to you guys with another knowledge clip. Last time I just did a knowledge clip specifically about your entire essay and how to start approaching it, but in this one I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into your introduction, so the first part of your entire writing assignment. So let's just get started. First thing, I just want to remind you guys of your assignment, just so you have it in the back of your mind for when I'm talking about the introduction. So again, you're supposed to pick a digital platform of your choosing, or a company of your choosing. You need to distinguish basically between value creation and value capturing in this digital platform. So you should address these questions, which is, these three leading questions, which is what is the value proposition, and to who, how does the platform create value, and how do they capture value? So it's all about value creation and value capturing. So that's what your main writing assignment is going to be about. So for your introduction, I would recommend making it about 1 page or 600 to 800 words, depending on which estimation you prefer. But that's the length that I would recommend for you guys to stick to whenever you're writing. And what you use the introduction for is exactly what the name is. You introduce your topic and your goal of your entire writing. Your central question is going to be presented in your introduction, and that is the most essential part of your introduction, because that is basically showing the reader what you are addressing in your essay, because the central question is obviously what you're trying to answer. You introduce your company as well, so one of the things that you should address is what do you think of this company's view on value creation and value capturing? To what extent is it realistic and solid? Those are some types of hints or things that you can address with your central question. And the big part of the introduction, again, is to make the reader understand why you're focusing on what you're focusing on. Why are you focusing on value creation and value capturing in your company, and why is it relevant? So this is basically just the main idea of the introduction. And now I'm going to go a little bit more into depth about your structure once I note that the introduction should be, again, very objective. So you should present facts and you should limit your opinion statements. Right now you are not needing to make any arguments for your central question or any justifications. All you're doing is just basically presenting your paper. So now let's get into the structure. So the way I would recommend, you don't have to do this obviously, but this is the way I structured my essay when I did it. I split it into 5 main parts. So your background, the identification of your problem, central question, research method, and structure of the paper. And so what I mean by those is I'm going to go through one of them, each of them one by one. So first is your background. So that is basically your situation where you introduce the issue that you're going to be talking about. So I know that they say current event, but you can also either use a current event or state a status quo. So what has been going on. So an example of a current event question basically that you can use to base your introduction off of is like, what is something new that has happened regarding value creation or capturing for your company within probably 5 years, I would recommend, would be recent. And for the status quo example, it would be something like, what is something that your company has been consistently doing for a long time and it is the norm? So those are 2 different ways that you can kind of hook the reader initially in your introduction and segue into your problem identification. And so what your problem identification is where you elaborate on this issue that you just introduced regarding your company's value creation and value capturing. So you basically introduce why this issue is important. Why is value creation and capturing, important for this company? Is this a new issue or problem that this company faces? How big of an issue is value creation and capturing aspect for the company? And who and what is affected? So who is affected by value creation and capturing by your company? So that's the second, basically, part of your introduction. Then we have the central question. So this is obviously the really big part. So you can link this to part 2, which is what I just went over, your problem identification, because obviously based on this issue that you've just identified, you now are going to ask a question about this. So to what extent does this issue, affect this company, basically? Or to what extent does value creation and value capturing, to what extent is it realistic for this company? It can be really anything. You can go more specific than the questions that they recommended to you in the assignment description. So again, your central question should be neutral, aka unbiased. It should have a defined scope, so you should be focusing obviously on a specific company and maybe a specific aspect of that company, and obviously not too broad. Make sure that any terms that you use in your central question are clear and well defined. So if you use a term that is maybe not well known, you should make sure that you clearly describe what that is before or after you say your central question. Make sure you know the reader understands exactly what your research question or your central question is asking. And again, your question cannot be an yes or no answerable question. So it needs to be an open question, because obviously if it's an open question, you can find arguments for this open question and argue yes or no. So an example of the way to start your question is to say, to what extent blah, blah, blah. So that's a way to basically transform your question from a closed one to an open one. And the last two parts of your paper, the research method, you should mention pretty briefly in your introduction. You don't need to spend a lot of time on it. You can combine this with part 5, the structure of the paper, which I'm going to get to in a second. So how do you plan on addressing or justifying your central or research question? Same thing. So in your paper, there's a lot of different research methods that you can do. In general, it's basically going back to BRM, like observation, observational research, those types of different studies. So obviously in our paper, you're not going to be running an experiment or anything like that. All you're doing is a review of past literature to support your arguments. So you're not conducting a study or experiment to justify your criteria. You are just taking past literature, taking past studies, and using those in your arguments. And then to combine that with the structure of the paper, what is the sequence that your paper will follow? So make sure you state the section names in Roman numerals, so section 1, section 2, etc. And you can describe in about 1 to 2 sentences as to what that section will have, or what you'll talk about in that section, and what it will contribute to your entire paper. Because obviously the intro is important, theoretical framework is very important, analysis is very important, and conclusion. So you can basically briefly describe each of your sections. So your sections are also given to you. You don't need to come up with them. They gave you introduction, like sections 1 through 4 basically are the sections that you're going to have in your essay. And remember that you need to mention how you will come to some sort of answer to your central question, and mention why your paper is relevant. So why are we even talking about this? Why are you even writing a whole paper about this and writing arguments for this? That's an important thing that you need to mention in your introduction as well. So those are basically the main parts, 5 parts of the introduction. You don't have to approach the introduction exactly like this. You can fix it, change it however you want, but these are basically the main ideas and main things that could be included, or some parts should be included depending on the instructions in your assignment outline. But yeah, this is just a way to structure it so that it flows smoothly. And just to show you guys an example of an introduction, this is my paper that I wrote. This is for taxation, so you can't necessarily use the information in it, but I'll just show you, how the introduction is using this kind of five main part thing. So obviously at the very beginning, I talk about the increase of digitalization, which is what my essay was about. So I'm talking about basically recent, like an increase in events, and now that there's been unilateral action, so this is now going into like a very recent event that just happened. So this basically was about, the background, and then following that, then I went into basically the issue experienced by the European Union. So this is basically where I'm identifying the problem, that there is aggressive tax avoidance, that type of thing. Like I'm introducing the issue. And then This is just basically how the European Commission responded to this issue. And finally, I introduced my central question. So what my paper will address. And my paper addressed to what extent is, blah, blah, blah. Basically what I'm going to be talking about. Then I just briefly mentioned my research method, or basically the way I'm going to be answering my arguments. So various literature will be analyzed. So that's basically all you need to put. And again, we need to introduce the structure of our paper. So section 2 is going to do this. Section 3, analysis, is going to do this. And section 4, conclusion, is going to do this. So this is basically how I ordered my own essay. And again, at the very end, I just summed up in total. This was going to answer again my research question. And basically it's going to give the issue basically some new insight. So this is just an example of how I applied this structure that I just showed you guys into an actual introduction. So going back to the slides, that's basically going to finish up the introduction video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And a new thing that I would like to do is for you guys to let me know in the comment section what video you would like to see next. I want to get as much feedback from you guys as I can to help you with your writing assignment. And again, I will be uploading a video this weekend about your theoretical framework. So similar to this slide presentation, I'm going to do the same one, but for your theoretical framework. And if you guys are struggling with knowing how to search for your literature and keeping track of it, check out the BRM Literature Review video. I'll link it down below to help you guys learn how to search for relevant literature to answer your central question. But that's going to be it for this video. Again, thank you for watching and have a great day. Goodbye.